I once had a friend who used to say, no matter what your heart and mind get contracted around, there's always something else that's true. I've been thinking a lot about that phrase over the last couple of days with what's going on in the news media, in the world, with coronavirus. I mean, there's lots of scary stories, a ton of scary projections into the future, many of which I'm making up in my own mind. And there's something else that's true, like everything happening in the present moment. In my case, it's been several days of rain here in North Hollywood. I love the rain. I love the quality of light. I love the smell. I love the sounds. I love the permission a rainy day seems to give me to just relax a little bit. But I have to direct my attention to it to unlock its regulatory effect on my nervous system. In a phrase, I have to be in the present moment. One of the things a person begins to understand when they practice mindfulness, or remember in my case to practice mindfulness, is how powerful the simple act of consciously directing one's attention can be. What we pay attention to matters. It's interesting to watch ourselves in stressful times, to watch where our attention is drawn when we experience threat, to notice what our impulses and patterns are, to notice how we cope. Some of us move away from stress. Some of us move towards it and become hypervigilant. Some of us catastrophize. Some of us numb. Each choice we make has an impact on how we experience the present moment and how well positioned we are to respond in wise and helpful ways to whatever is happening. Now, there's a lot of fear and confusion in the air, and there are very real reasons to pay attention. But there are also ways to stay calm, connected, and responsive as we move through whatever this is. So for this episode of Dascast, I want to talk about anxiety and how to stay present, calm, and responsive in stressful times. This is Dascast. It's an audio exploration of the causes of well-being. My name's Pablo Das. I'm leading this expedition. Welcome. I want to talk a little bit about the human nervous system. When a human being perceives threat, there is this energy. It's an energy which is always potentiating within us, which then organizes to respond to that perception of threat. That energy is what we sometimes call anxiety. If you are experiencing anxiety related to what's going on in the news, to some degree, that's actually appropriate. It's appropriate if it stays balanced and doesn't overwhelm your capacity to be present and responsive. And it helps to be conscious about how we work with anxiety. One way to begin working with it might be to start by simply becoming aware of the relationship you have to anxiety. Anxiety itself is not necessarily a problem, but how we understand it, how we relate to it and work with it, can either lead to overwhelm, or it can support us to stay quite grounded and calm as we make clear-headed assessments and choices about whatever is going on. What I have to offer today are 3 practices. One on working directly with anxiety itself, and 2 others on how to regulate your nervous system when you need to bring your level of activation down. So, what follows are practices which are contemplative in nature, so you'll probably get the most out of these if you can get somewhere relatively quiet and if you can be somewhat still. This is practice number 1, turning toward and deconstructing anxiety in the body. As human beings, we are wired to want to get rid of what is uncomfortable. Now, you might have figured out that life is not always comfortable. So, what if instead of trying to get rid of anxiety, we thought about it as the energy that is there to support us to be safe? Then, as a contemplative practice, we can begin to learn more about this energy of self-protection and maybe feel more grounded in the process. We use the term anxiety to label and communicate about something that we are experiencing. So let's use awareness to get underneath the label And turn to the body where the anxiety resides and simply notice how you know that anxiety is present within you. Where in the body is it located? Then look a little deeper. What is it composed of? What are its parts? Is it just one sensation? Is it more than one? Deconstruct the anxiety. See it for what it is. Notice what happens simply as a result of turning your attention towards the sensations that make up anxiety. Does it increase in intensity? Does it seem to decrease? Does it stay the same? Does it sort of move? Does it break up? Does it end? And what happens as a result of deconstructing it into its parts? Is there a way in which it feels more manageable as you realize that anxiety is just sensation? Can you soften into or soften around whatever is happening in the body? Remember, the sensations are part of your natural self-protective system. They are, in a way, there to help. See if you can soften any sympathetic muscle bracing around or in response to the sensations of anxiety. Soften both your mental and physical resistance to them. Just become receptive, curious. And in whatever way makes sense for you, try to practice caring about the anxiety rather than just wanting it to go away. Caring about pain, caring about suffering, is what we call compassion. And let's just give this practice a few moments. The next thing I'd like to talk about is how to support the regulation or calming of your own nervous system. I have two practices for this. The first is a reflective practice which draws on internal imagery and the recitation of phrases. Because the source of our anxiety is often located within us, in our own minds, it can be useful to proactively fill the mind with words and images that support calm. So here's practice number 2, regulating with internal reflective imagery and phrases. What we call thoughts are just words, images, or the interplay of the two. Part of what we discover in contemplative practice is that we have a lot of agency to work within those two spaces in our minds, in that kind of talk space, in that space where imagery resides. We have a lot of agency to calm our nervous systems. Thoughts have an incredible ability to drive anxiety in the body. So let's work first with internal imagery. So to begin, I'd like you to just make a note of the level of activation or anxiety in your nervous system right now on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 would be completely relaxed. 10 is just overwhelmed. Just make a note of your number on that scale of 1 to 10. Now, with an intention to support calm, bring to mind an image of a place that you have felt calm or calmer in the past. It could be a beautiful place in nature, a place that you've had good times in your life, a place that you felt you could be yourself, or a place you felt seen. Just find an image associated with a place like that, a place which supports a sense of well-being in your system or provokes some pleasure. And as a practice, it's your job to simply enjoy that image. And we'll give this a moment. And just give a little awareness to see if your number on a scale of 1 to 10 has shifted at all, just by bringing this image to mind. Now, let's work with the internal talk space. So without abandoning the connection you have to that image, so continue to hold the image, find a phrase that you'd be willing to offer yourself, which would be an expression of kindness or compassion directed towards yourself. The phrase can be anything you like. Some traditional phrases are things like, "May I be at ease," "I wish you well," "I got your back," "You are safe" or "safer here." Any phrase that moves you towards a sense of well-being. When you find that phrase, just repeat it to yourself and stay connected to the image with an intention to support calm and well-being. Soften your body. Just the image coupled with the phrase, inviting calm. And one more time, just spread a little awareness to see if your number on a scale of 1 to 10 has shifted at all. I have one last practice to offer, which has to do with directing attention. Practice number 3 is moving your attention from internal experience to the external visual or sonic field. This practice is probably the one I personally use the most. For some of us, especially those of us with trauma histories, it can be helpful to move your attention away from potentially overwhelming experience in the body and mind. Some people feel disconnected from the body, so it's hard to work in that realm. So instead, we anchor our attention in something outside of ourselves, like external sights and sounds. As in the last practice, we also work with a phrase. That phrase is, "I am aware of." In the practice, we simply complete that phrase 5 times with something we see in real time, and then 5 more times with something we hear. It doesn't matter if you return to the same sight or sound more than once, and I will demonstrate. Now, as we did before, just make a note of your activation number on a scale of 1 to 10. Again, 1 is calm, 10 is overwhelm. So I'll demonstrate the practice out loud so you can hear what it sounds like for you as you practice internally. The pacing for this is slow and calm. And we just rest on the object in between labels. So here we go. Could sound like this. I am aware of the lamp. And then we just rest our attention on the lamp. I'm aware of my cat. I am aware of the flowers in the window. I'm aware of the mug on the table. I am aware of the photo on the wall. And then 5 sounds. I am aware of the traffic. I am aware of the birds. I am aware of a plane. I am aware of the birds. I am aware of the traffic. And then if you need, you can repeat that process. Speaking just for myself, I rarely have to repeat. By this point in the practice, I'm often more regulated than I was by 1 or 2 points. And just make a note of your number now on a scale of 1 to 10, just to see if it has shifted at all. There are a number of reasons why that last practice works, but one interesting bit is that humans are wired to scan the environment as a way of assessing for threat. When we establish that there is no immediate threat, the natural response of the nervous system is to regulate and calm itself. So I find that practice very useful. Now, the point of all of these practices is not completely to get rid of anxiety. It's not to not respond to what's going on. But sometimes a 1 or 2 point reduction in anxiety is enough to open up more capacity to be present and therefore responsive rather than unconscious and impulsive, which is huge, which would be really huge for us all right now. Anxiety is a part of life for all humans. For those with a trauma history, it can be a part of everyday life. Wherever you are on that scale and whatever you're experiencing in these stressful times, these practices hopefully can help you relate to and work with your own nervous system in a wise and empowered way. I hope this has been helpful. Take care of yourself. If you are interested in one-on-one support in integrating Buddhist practice into daily life, managing trauma, working with addiction patterns, or establishing a wellness program, please visit causesofwellbeing.com. Sessions are available in person in Los Angeles and remotely via the web.